Welcome, I'm Bob Duff, the sports columnist from the Windsor Star. Today I'm joined by Josef Newgarden, an IndyCar driver who's in town for the Detroit Chevrolet Belle Isle Grand Prix. Josef, you've just spent pretty much the whole month of May going as fast as you can and turning left, and now you come to a street course on Belle Isle, which is probably the toughest course you're going to run all year in a physical standpoint. What's that like on you both mentally and physically?
Well, it's tough after the 500 because you've had, a full race, especially if you do the whole race and you get the 500 miles in. You're pretty worn out, not just from the race, but from the whole month. The month of May is kind of our crown jewel in IndyCar racing, and we spend days and days and days at Indianapolis doing testing, media work, for 2 weeks straight, basically. So you're just worn out, physically, mentally, you're drained, and then you get a couple days off. The crew doesn't get that, but the drivers might get a couple days off, and then you got to get back into the rhythm of things on Saturday and Sunday again, right in Detroit. But it's cool for me because I always like mixing it up. You go from the Indy 500, which is the biggest, fastest oval that we do all year, and then you got to go to a tight, technical, very physical, and fast-flowing street course like Detroit. And some guys aren't as good at switching back and forth between those different types of tracks. So the guys that know how to mentally get themselves in the right place each weekend are going to prevail, basically.
What's your body feel like, say, after the Indianapolis 500 compared to what it's going to feel like on Sunday afternoon when you're done the second race here?
I think Indianapolis is more mentally draining. The whole process that you have to go through all month, it's very mentally draining. And then even in the race, you're having to focus very attentively on what's going on. It's not that you don't have to do that at Detroit, it's just at the speeds we run in Indianapolis, you're doing 220, 230 for 500 miles, and you have all these cars around you. The type of movements that you make are very critical. The margin for error around Indy is a lot smaller. Whereas at Detroit, you actually have more room to slide the cars, you get a little bit more freedom, but on top of that, it's more physically challenging. So I think mentally, Indianapolis is more of a drain, Detroit's more of a physical drain. You're really going to feel it on the body. You're going to be losing a lot of body weight from just water loss. The heat can always hurt. So really, two different types of physicalities almost, in my opinion, with the mental side and the physical, but they're both a fun challenge to try and get on top of.
And as you mentioned, you get to do it 2 days in a row. It's the only stop on the circuit now, which is a doubleheader. What is that like to go from Saturday when you get through a draining race and knowing in 24 hours you got to do it all over again?
I don't mind so much. I've always liked the doubleheaders. It gives people 2 shows during a weekend. Normally, when you come up in the junior ranks as a driver, you always have 2 or 3 races during a weekend, and I always loved that because you had more than one opportunity to do well. Whereas now in IndyCar, generally it's just one race during the weekend. You race on Sunday, and if you get it right, great. But if you get it wrong, then you got to go home and go to the next one. So it does give you an opportunity from Saturday to Sunday. If you didn't have a great Saturday race, you can pick it up on Sunday, or vice versa. You can have a great Saturday and have a horrible Sunday. And that really emphasizes points. Normally it's one race during the weekend, it's 50 points for a win. Now you got 2 races that are worth 50 points. So if you have a bad weekend in Detroit, it's going to be double to hit the championship. So everyone's really got to be on top of their game. You really got to make sure to have a strong weekend and get the most points out of it. I think that's the biggest thing for me. From the physical side, it's not as much of a problem. I mean, we prepare for that. We prepare all off season to be physically ready. It's more that you just have to make sure you get the points during the weekend.
Is it easier to come back Sunday if you've had a good Saturday?
I don't know if it's easier, especially in IndyCar. You have one good race, that doesn't mean you're going to have another good one. I mean, it's so difficult in IndyCar now. No one knows who's going to win every weekend. There's no one that's dominant in the championship. You just have to show up and try and see what you got every day. And if you have a good day, you can't get too cocky, you can't get too arrogant, because it could come around and bite you the next day. You could have a great Saturday and then go into Sunday and have a horrible Sunday, even though you're feeling great. So I think you don't get too complacent. If you had a good Saturday, you try and just stay on top of your game and then make it happen again on Sunday.
I've got to ask you, you did a hilarious video that's on YouTube called Life of an IndyCar Driver. How did that all come about?
I did this a couple years ago. I think this was at the Century 21 stuff, right? Mm-hmm. This was a couple years ago I did this video, and I just wanted to basically make a video of a race car driver that took himself too seriously and was always in his race suit, always in his helmet, and then just went around everywhere and messed around with people and going to the grocery store and try and buy milk and play with kids in the park, but just all very serious skits that kind of turned into something funny. So he was taking a pun out and playing on a race car driver being too serious about himself, but I thought it turned out pretty good.
And that's you in the suit. It's not a stunt double.
That was me. No, I never took off the helmet. I should have taken off the helmet to reveal myself, but that was kind of part of the mystery, I guess.
That will be you in the race car this weekend. If you want to go to the race, DetroitGP.com to get tickets, and they go Saturday and Sunday. There's some great support races too. It's a heck of a weekend, and you should check it out. And Joseph, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.